Welcome back, all. This is the Combat College, where we offer a free, world-class education to all warriors, all the time. Cody Chilson here, and I'll be your instructor for the day. Listen up! If you're in the complete domination of your opponents during combat, then take heed to today's lesson. After training over 25 years in martial arts, teaching over 12 styles, and raising over 5 generations of fighters and instructors, I've come to the conclusion that what I'm going to show you today is the greatest game changer and the most important foundational piece to becoming a warrior that I've ever witnessed. What I'm going to introduce you to today is considered to be the endgame goal of entire styles, what at the Combat College we call a succession technique. What's a succession technique? Most styles of martial arts have a set of endgame body mechanics or techniques that are meant to be accessed after the practitioner has absorbed the lessons of the art in its totality. Traditionally, these techniques were reserved for lifetime practitioners or successors of an art form. Why share such a thing? Because as warriors, we have all been tasked with the terrible privilege of continuing our art's evolution. Because we owe it to our forefathers to carry their legacy into the future. And because I feel like it. I'm going to promise you 3 things today. 1, what I'm about to expose you to is simple, but not at all easy. 2, it's going to take a lifetime of practice to execute this 100% of the time. And 3, when you execute these techniques correctly, regardless of your opponent's skill level or experience level, there is no defense against it. It is with no further hesitation that I present you with the Combat College's first succession technique, known as the invisible hand. Now, what the f does that mean? What would you do if I told you that you had to fight someone who moved their body in such a way that every time they attacked you, it was undetectable to the human eye? What would you say if that same fighter could read your attacks before you even formulated them? The answer is that you would say nothing, and you would die quickly. In short, I'm going to teach you how to hit someone, and even though they are watching you hit them, it is physiologically impossible for them to see it. And in the process of learning this, you're going to gain the ability to read your opponent's attacks before they happen. Don't believe me? I don't blame you. But I'm going to do something for you to help you guys out. Because you're a hard worker, and that's what I like about you. Besides, I want you to be able to do this. Since it's 2015, I'm not going to hit you with a bunch of cryptic mysticism or feed you a bunch of stylized, dogmatic bullshit. I'm going to show you how this works using mathematics, physics, and since yours truly is also a paramedic with a medical degree, I'm going to teach you the pathophysiology of how this works in the human body. Rest assured, this is as truly awesome as it sounds. Otherwise, we would not bother with it. Now for me to introduce you to the main character in today's story. I give you none other than
the autonomic nervous system.
The autonomic nervous system. This is the autonomic nervous system. The main function of your nervous system is to relay messages between your body and your brain. The autonomic nervous system is the part that automatically regulates your body. Thus, autonomic. Question. When's the last time you had to focus your brain in order to keep your heart beating while you were sleeping? Never. Thanks to
the autonomic nervous system.
And when's the last time you had to think about blinking your eyes every 6 seconds? Never. Thanks to
the autonomic nervous system.
And when's the last time you had to tell yourself to shiver to keep yourself warm? Never. All thanks
the autonomic nervous system.
Why all the fuss? Because the autonomic nervous system is just that, a system. And all systems in this world can be bypassed or broken when you understand them. And here's a real kick in the nuts, people. You can no more escape the limitations of this system then you can escape your own skeleton. Everybody's got one, and they all work the same way. The essence of the invisible hand and non-telegraphic movement lie in your ability to confound and override the limitations of this system. Now let's talk shop. I want you to understand one thing, and one thing only. Your body is one of the most effective systems of self-preservation in the universe. Why do people get pale when they feel bad? Because your body pulls blood from your skin and limbs into your core in order to protect vital organs. And the lack of blood turns your skin white. Why does your heart rate increase while you bleed to death? Because your body has less blood volume, and the heart pumps harder and faster to make your blood pressure stay up so you don't pass out and die. Hell, I bet you even think you like McDonald's French fries and milkshakes. Truth is, you don't. However, your body is designed to interpret high-calorie foods as delicious to trick you into not dying of starvation. And all of these things happen automatically, whether you want them to or not, thanks to
the autonomic nervous system.
Now let's talk about how this is intertwined with your ability to react to perceived threats and attacks. There are two types of attacks. The first is internal, which is when something's already touching you. And the second is external, which is when you are not touching it and you can only see the perceived threat. Now, an internal martial art would be something like judo or jiu-jitsu or wrestling, where you have constant contact and you can feel everything your opponent does. An external martial art, however, would be something like boxing or karate, which is based on striking, where you have to rely on your sight. Even when you strike, though, the second you touch someone, the mechanic ceases to become external and becomes internal because you can feel the contact. Why is this important? Because your autonomic nervous system has a different defense mechanism for internal and external threats. How so? Externally, when you see an incoming attack, your nervous system goes through 3 stages. First is visual stimulus, where you see what's happening. Second is the mental response, when you interpret the threat. And third is the physical response, when you then act according to the threat. Most martial arts train you to replace your natural physical response with a tactical physical response. However, this training only addresses the final phase of this 3-part reaction. Now, internally, or when touching, is a completely different story. There are only 2 phases of that reaction chain. There's a tactile or a feeling of the stimulus, and then the second phase is the physical response. Arts like Wing Chun and Kali train these reflexes so they happen at the same time. The easy way to understand is to realize that your nervous system is designed to feel something way faster than it is designed to see something and react. Here's the data. According to a study done by the University of Hong Kong, an untrained person reacts over 30% faster to tactile or touching stimulus than they do the visual stimulus. Now, why is it faster to feel than it is to see? Because your body is one of the most effective systems of self-preservation in the universe. You are more likely to be killed by something that is making contact with you than by something that you see in the distance. Therefore, your body is designed to give the faster defense mechanism to the greater threat. Invisible hand techniques deal with the external fighting arts and defeating the visual reaction chain. However, defeating the tactile or touching reaction chain is a completely different process, which will be addressed in the future by a different succession technique, one which is known in ninjutsu as shadow hand. Now that we know why and how the body responds to an external attack, let's break and bypass that system. Remember my first promise? Is that this would be simple, but not at all easy? Well, here's the simple part. As you learned in your 3-dimensional footwork lesson earlier, there are 3 dimensions of space in physics. And the first dimension is a That's right, a straight line. You guys were listening. The simplicity of this concept is that movement that runs in a perfectly straight line in a single motion is undetectable to the human eye. Don't believe me? Have you ever heard the saying, he's as fast as a snake? Why do you think they say that? Truth is, snakes aren't fast at all. I've never been driving down the road at 50 miles an hour and had a snake pass by me. Snakes are considered to be fast because they begin their attack from a coiled, loaded position, and when they strike, they move in a straight, one-dimensional line to the intended target. When we say, he's as fast as a snake, what you should really be saying is, he's not as slow as a human. Your inability to visually process one-dimensional motion and lack of reaction is what gives that snake speed, not actual speed in the mechanical sense. The snake hits you before your eye can tell your brain what's happening. Here's an experiment for you. Have a friend pull back a rubber band and stick your hand directly in the path of trajectory. Now when you see him let go, move your hand out of the way. The only way to not get hit is to move before you see him let go, or to not be there at all, to just not get involved. Like I promised you earlier, regardless of your level of skill, you cannot disassociate yourself from the way your nervous system processes information. Now comes the part that is not at all easy. Now we will become like the snake and take this from theory to practice. If you want to know the amount of effort it took to become functional at this, it took me over 3 years of training 3 to 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, as well as a load of ring time. And I still touch on it every day, and it still could be better. If it were easy, it wouldn't be a succession technique. It also wouldn't stick with you, because after all, easy come, easy go. The great news, though, is that even if you can't commit to this process completely, it will make you better than you already are. Much better. The art of the invisible hand is the art of non-telegraphic motion. Now, what is a telegraph? A telegraph is a motion that occurs before an attack lands that makes the attack predictable and capable of being read. One of my instructors, Guru Nate Hill, likes to describe this process like a tell in the game of poker. Regardless of how good a person is at cards, if you can tell that they're bluffing, you can read what they're going to do before they show their hand. Let's look at the 3 main telegraphs that exist in human body mechanics when striking. They are, number 1, the pullback, then strike. Number 2, the step, then strike. And number 3, body shifting before striking. Since earlier we talked about non-telegraphic motion being only one motion, I want you to begin to analyze attacks like they're math problems. Let's look at each telegraph and learn to read how many movements are in each. Now, let's count the motions here. That's 1 motion on the pullback, a 2nd motion on the stopping of the momentum, and a 3rd motion on the extension. When you're attacked, your eye sees the motion on the pullback, the eye tells the brain on the stop, and your brain forces a reaction on the extension. Now for the step, then strike. That's 1 motion on the step, a 2nd for the feet to base, and a 3rd to strike. When attacked, your eye sees the step. The eye tells the brain when the body bases, and the action is on its way by the time the strike lands. Now for body shifting. You getting the hang of this yet? Let's count. First, the trunk shifts. 2nd, the arm extends and the hand lands on the 3rd motion. The eye sees the shift. The eye tells the brain while the arm moves, and the brain sends the reaction as the hand lands. Now that was being nice to our attacker, because usually all three of these body telegraphs happen at the same time. Most untrained people use a body mechanic similar to throwing a baseball when they strike. The funny thing is, though, that most trained fighters do the same thing. It's just smaller motions. Now let's look. Let's look at our untrained fighter. Here we have the pullback, the step, and the body shift all together. First, the hand pulls back. Second, the hand stops. Third, the foot steps. Fourth, the feet base. Fifth, the torso turns. Sixth, the arm moves. And on the seventh movement, the strike lands. Time for a math question. If someone's untrained and you can strike them in one movement, and they take 7 movements for their strike to land, how many times can you theoretically hit them before they touch you? The answer is a minimum of 4 times. To illustrate this point, imagine you're holding a loaded semi-automatic pistol at the attacker. When you see a move, you get to start shooting. Ready? When the hand pulls back, your eye sees it. When the hand stops, your eye tells your brain. When the foot steps, you squeeze the trigger. As the feet base, as the torso turns, as the arm moves, as the strike lands. Now here's the cool thing. If you train yourself to be sensitive to telegraphs and execute perfectly, you can capture almost 100% of the movements for a total of perfectly 7 shots. This is because after training this over a long period of time, your reaction chain becomes fused together. Even if you fail to capture the majority of your opponent's movements, you will still most likely get a 3-to-1 exchange. Now let's try this on a trained fighter. Now here's what's crazy. The vast majority of trained fighters use the exact same body mechanics as the untrained fighter. The difference is they're tighter, more structurally sound, less committed, and able to recover after each attack. Let's take a look. First, the hand pulls back very slightly. Second, the hand stops. Third, the foot steps. Fourth, the feet base. Fifth, the torso turns tightly. Sixth, the arm moves quickly. And on the 7th movement, the strike lands. See? Every single motion is still there. The difference is that you have to be more visually sensitive and able to see smaller movements. This is a byproduct of training. However, when you see them, you can take advantage of a trained fighter in the exact same way that you can take advantage of an untrained fighter. Now grab your gun, and let's take a look. When the hand pulls back slightly, your eye sees it. When the hand stops, your eye tells your brain. When the foot steps, you squeeze the trigger. As the feet base, as the torso turns tightly, as the arm moves quickly, as the strike lands. Now, I'm going to execute invisible hand motions, and after we're going to subject it to the same process. Let's look closer. As the weapon makes contact, the eye is talking to the brain. Essentially, you are hitting the target before the eye can communicate the impulse to your brain, clearing the way for as many strikes as you can get away with until the autonomic nervous system's defense mechanism kicks in. Because I'm using compression forces in my body, like a snake, as opposed to creating distance outside of myself, like a baseball pitch, there's no need to move anywhere but into the target. Before I even move, I find the most direct straight line between my weapon and the target. And when I do move, I move my weapon first, exploding outward in a straight line like a bullet out of a gun. If my body moves, it does so after the weapon is moving into the target. Since my weapon is the first thing out of the gate, by the time a person can react, I've struck them with full power, closed the gap, and have many more strikes on the way. Now, for the final practical portion of the lesson. When you see me move, I want you to say block. I'm going to mix up regular striking and non-telegraphic striking. See if you can tell the difference. Remember, if you can't finish saying block before I hit you, then it lands without resistance and you die. Ready? In conclusion, remember that in its simplicity, the art of the invisible hand is the art of striking from a loaded position in a straight, one-dimensional line with your weapon first. If done this way, it will land before the eye can tell the brain what's happening. In the future, we will go into drills on how to develop this skill even more in every single style. After today, every strike you will ever learn from me will be non-telegraphic. Stay diligent, train hard, and don't get too frustrated with this. And in time, it will supplant your natural reactions.